Steering Committee, as well as Dr. Bill Harrington, the Vice Speaker of the Council Steering Committee. We'll be doing the presentation this evening. And I'll turn it over to Trina Madison to do the intro in a second. But very quickly, for those of you who have not been able to attend one of these sessions in the past, for the entirety of the presentation, you're, as an attendee, going to be on mute. However, we do encourage you to participate either by typing in questions along the way or raising your hand at the end to ask a question. So as they're going through the slides and they're going through the presentation and you do have questions, you can use the chat function in the right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead and get those on cue, and then Trina is going to announce those at the end of the session. Also, when we open up for questions, if you'd like to ask one live, you can use the raise your hand icon in the right-hand side of your menu bar, and we can unmute you, and you'll be able to do it that way. We do have these slated for 1 hour, and we try very hard to honor that hour, so we do intend to be done in 1 hour's time. So we promise to make very good use of your time this evening. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trina, who's going to do the intro.
Okay, so really Tanya did a great job. Thank you all for joining the call tonight. We are very pleased to have this opportunity to have Drs. Applegate and Harrington as our council speaker and vice speaker respectively lead this and provide some background on the new ACR 2015 meeting, as well as an overview of some of the council activities, and help you to prepare for the meeting in advance, to prepare to participate in the meeting, and to get a little insight on how you can take information back and be an advocate for the meeting afterwards. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Applegate. I'm going to give her control here to utilize these slides, and we'll get started.
Thank you very much, Trina. This is Kimberly Applegate, and I am delighted to be here this evening with the folks that are able to take some time out of their evening and have the opportunity to learn what's new and what's different and exciting about this upcoming meeting in May. You're well ahead of the game to spend some time with us and hopefully get familiar with what's new and different. We're very excited to be with you this evening, and whatever we cannot answer, Tanya and Trina can. They know so much about what's different about the meeting. We have a lot of new offerings, and we hope that you will avail yourselves of the experts here, as well as the new materials that we have prepared on the website and the new upcoming materials that will be shortly available to us. Let me see if I can advance the slides. What we're going to do today, see if I can advance to slide 1, yes, is to help by orienting us on what we want to cover. I think I advanced it maybe one too many. If I can go back one slide. Let's see. Yes, what we want to talk tonight about is preparing for the council meeting, or the governance pathway, what we call, we used to call the AMCLC, and what we want to have everyone participate in during the meeting. And then what I'm going to have Bill Harrington talk about is what to do immediately after the meeting, and then take home with you from the meeting and share with your chapter colleagues and society colleagues. So hopefully these topics will cover the key points for your questions. So some of the things that we want to share with you are what kind of resources and orientation materials have been prepared, not just this year, but in some prior years by the Council Steering Committee and by staff. A number of them have been updated for this meeting and to reflect some of the new approaches that we have from our strategic plan and from the new language and our purple track that the governance pathway is now labeled as. We want to share with you that the resolutions and agenda materials should be available to you initially by March 16. We're trying very hard to get those out for some of the chapter meetings that occur in the spring. And these are both our practice parameters, technical standards, and as well as our policy resolutions. We compile a number of materials for the council to be available by April 1, and these include officer reports, commission chair reports like economics, We also have the officer rosters and things like that that we want to make sure people review. The meeting registration rates will increase by May 1 again, so we want to make people aware of that, to tell your colleagues to be sure and register before then. And then the hotel we contract with has a deadline of April 23 where they guarantee the current rates up till that date. There may still be space available depending on how many people we have signed up by then, but we want to make sure everyone knows that as well. All right. So some of the resources that we have available are some podcasts that include information about parliamentary procedure. And we're not going to go into any detail about that, but there is information, both written and on verbal podcasts, that we use Sturgis version 4 for our parliamentary process. And we have the election materials now. We don't have the full material out, but we do have on the website of the governance pathway the people up for election, and then the annual meeting preliminary program. So there are those that are currently under updating right now. The counselor handbook has been updated to reflect new language, where it outlines in a brief form the duties and responsibilities of the different members of council. We have the procedures of the council, which is more comprehensive, and this is reviewed every year by the speaker. And I have asked that the Council Steering Committee also review it. And this is very, very important because it outlines our process where we have a procedures manual, so to speak, and it's very important for all of us to follow. Finally, a very abbreviated form of our procedures is our standing rule. And that's something that we put before the council when we convene and we ask for a vote of approval. And we want everyone to be aware that these are very simple rules, such as the 2-minute rule for coming to the microphone and speaking so that we can effectively get through the business of the council. All right. Now, just so you're aware of where some of these resources are found, we've tried to work very hard to put hyperlinks on the website, and there's 2 ways of getting to this website. One is by going to the main ACR homepage and then typing in governance, or going to the ACR 2015 meeting and then going to the governance pathway. And on the left-hand side, it says membership, and it says under that third slot down under membership, it says governance. And there you can find the council resources and orientation materials where the red arrow is shown. Underneath of these resources, it has a number of very critical resources for any member of council, and those include our bylaws, our digest of council actions, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and also council rules and ways that you can become more familiar with what we do during the meeting and during the rest of the year to do the business of policy making and practice parameter development and review. We also have the election information for the bottom. So in terms of our resolutions, we have places where those can be downloaded. Right now, this year's are not yet posted. We're going to have an initial posting, and then when they're finally put into the different reference committees and numbered, those will be put in their final format by our Quality and Safety Committee and our governance staff, and then they will be in final form so that you'll know which reference committee will be discussing each of them. There are 3 types of resolutions that we have, and I know many of you know this, but some of you may not. We have the practice parameters and technical standards. That's one type. We have bylaws, and we only have one of those this year. And Trina, you can correct me if I'm wrong here at any point. And then the third type is our policy resolutions, which we're trying to increase in number and make the debate and discussion more interesting as we set policy for the college at these annual meetings. So the compiled materials, as I said before, that we ask everyone to look at before they come to the meeting. Some people will do it on the airplane ride getting to DC, but we want people to know about the report and also to understand that there are leadership rosters about the leaders in our college, our board members, our council steering committee members, our committee members, and also our counselors and alternate counselors. The sunset policies that we review, and this is where Bill Harrington is our expert this year. As our vice speaker, it is his duty to lead this review of the digest of our council actions so that every year we look back at 10 years ago what our policies and resolutions were to see if they are something we want to keep, revise, or sunset, or in other words, get rid of. I think I skipped a slide there. So again, on the website for the 2015 meeting, it'll have a ACR governance slot, and it has resources and information again, and a place where the materials can be downloaded. As I said earlier, the registration rate for the meeting will increase May 1, and there's a lot of detail about the options for collecting CME and CME SAM. This is one of, I think, the great wins for the ACR in that there are many, many options for the counselors in particular to claim free limited CMEs based on what the counselors used to get at the annual AMCLC versus discounted member rates for the full CME meeting. The other thing I think people may not understand is that the virtual meeting contains a very large number of CME credits, as you see on this slide. You can earn up to almost 141 CME credits, which include SAMs, for up to 12 months after the meeting. So if you register for the full CME portion of the meeting, you can earn those over a 2-year calendar cycle. So you could get them in 2015 as well as 2016. And that's really helpful for if you're in the MOC program. So that's something to keep in mind and tell your colleagues at home. Something else to keep in mind is that we actually have contracted with the Omni Shoreham Hotel, which is adjacent to the Marriott Wardman Park. And there will be some meetings that occur in the Omni, including the resident and fellow section meeting on the weekend on Saturday and Sunday. And so it's important to look very carefully at the program once the rooms have been assigned. Currently, to the best of my knowledge, Trina and Tanya and the staff are working on the room assignments as we speak, and they will have to keep checking back at the website, and we will be sending you council news updates every 2 weeks between now and the annual meeting to update you with the room assignments for all of the meeting locations. So just be careful to look at the location and make sure you know which hotel they're going to be in, although most of them will occur in the Marriott Wardman Park. This is a photograph, I think a beautiful photograph of the council meeting room. It's a very large room. It's larger than what we had at the Hilton. We will have it designed so that during the opening session we can hold a very large number of folks. We can have both the theater style seating as we traditionally do during the convocation, and then we will have the tables for the counselors, as we always do, with the appropriate microphones and labels for the state chapters and the society council member seating. Behind that, we will have open seating for members who have not traditionally attended our open hearings and reference committee reports. So on the Monday and the Tuesday council meetings, we will have, I think, a larger group of people attending. A couple of other things that are we'll talk about in terms of timing and differences are the caucus meetings. We're going to hold those at a little bit different time than in the past, and we're going to have the speakers hour on Tuesday morning. The schedule at a glance that is downloadable as a PDF. We are planning to have it available as a mobile app. We're going to be testing that before it's available to members. And that's part of the Council Steering Committee's to do. We hope to have a different, what we used to call AMCLC. We want to make clear that it's the purple path or the governance path. In case this is not clear, if you go to the 2015 website, the preliminary governance pathway schedule at a glance has a little PDF version download available where the blue arrows are. And on the left-hand side, it says annual meeting, and you can download different portions of the program or the entire program as a whole or as a one-day, a day-to-day one. And it has different portions of the program outlined in that left-hand column. So what's different about the meeting? This is important to keep in mind. The council convenes for the first time on Sunday morning instead of Sunday afternoon. We have some officer and the president's report. We have candidate speeches. And then we have all of our caucus meetings on Sunday afternoon, not Sunday morning. We've done some other work to try to organize those caucus meetings so that the society caucus meetings are grouped together later in the afternoon, and the chapter caucus meetings occur earlier in the afternoon, so that there's we're trying to avoid any kind of overlap. The economics forum is Monday afternoon. It's broken up to have a break, but there's a part 1 and a part 2 open to everybody. We have our Morton lecture on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock with Dr. Jim Thrall as the speaker. And his lecture is titled Imaging in the Era of Precision Medicine. We also have the RADPAC Gala dinner and reception separated this year so that the dinner is actually on Tuesday evening, and this is an invitation-only event, so I hope that people will be interested in attending that. And then the reception is on Wednesday evening after the Capitol Hill visit. So the RADPAC dinner encourages well, it requires actually a pledge of $1,000, and the deadline for that is April 24. So I know I'm going. I think Bill always goes. So hopefully we will see more people there on this call, and if anyone wants to talk to us offline, please contact us about that. The site this year is the Sequoia. It's in Georgetown. It's on the waterfront. It is privately catered. The RADPAC reception is on Wednesday evening. It's at 5:30 to 6:30 in the Omni Shore, and there is an encouragement that everyone contribute, but at any level. So what's unchanged about the meeting? Well, we have the same convocation on Sunday evening for all new fellows and honorees. We have the same open reference committee meeting on Monday. We have the same reference committee report on Tuesday, and the Capitol Hill visit on Wednesday. So the same elements are all present. The order in which they occur are pretty much the same, but when they occur is a little bit different. I'd say that's probably the biggest difference. So the geographic caucuses will occur in the Omni Hotel, and the specialty caucuses in the Marriott Hotel. That's something to keep in the back of your mind. We'll have more information, of course, about that as soon as we know what rooms have been assigned. I think that we have that slide up before. Just count on at least a good 5-minute walk, depending on how fast a walker you are. And I think Bill has a few pictures to show you about what things look like if you haven't been at a meeting at the Marriott Wardman. Now, in terms of how, if you haven't been in a council meeting, how we run these sessions, the book pictured in the right-hand side of the slide is the Sturgis version 4, the Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure, and it is a fairly well-regarded process for how to be efficient in getting the business of council procedures done. It's also a way to have civil discussion and to be fair and open in a large venue. It's really important that everyone has the ability to voice questions and to have harmony in a large session. So that's the idea behind the principles of the parliamentary procedures and why we do it. And we have an orientation session that's open to all counselors and folks that want to attend, that Bill Harrington will be giving on Sunday morning from 7 to 8. I encourage anyone to go attend it. There is a breakfast at it, and it's usually a very informative session. Some of the same material that we're presenting tonight will be presented at that session, and a little more detail about the council sessions and the reference committee. The other thing that I think is important to know about is the social media session. I think this will be our 3rd year doing it. It's been very popular, so we wanted to be able to keep this. The time is a little bit different. We're doing it around the noon hour on Sunday. We're going to have box lunches. The person hosting it is Matt Hawkins, who is a former member of the Council Steering Committee. He's a young physician. He's in my practice at Emory now, and he is just a delight to show you all of the ins and outs of social media use. And I encourage you to look into that. We will send out information about how to RSVP in an upcoming council news shortly. So that has been a popular session. In terms of the reference committee, we have pretty much completed the assignments of the members of the reference committees and the resolutions. We have a little bit of work still to do on that. And then the open hearings on Monday is really the time for you and any member of the college to speak. We have a process using our standing rules for you to go to the microphone, and we will remind you, either Bill or myself, to state your name, your title, and who you're representing when you come to the microphone. And we follow a process to keep it efficient and to keep it civil, and to submit written comments as well as what you're saying at the microphone, so that we can track everybody's comments and make sure the reference committee has their written comments. But this works very well, and it works in pretty much every society that has a resolution process. And so I really hope that you will use this time to speak up and share your opinions and contribute to the policymaking process. In the closed session on Tuesday, the rules are slightly different, and we will try to have both the standing rules and scenario cards available, at least one per row, at the meeting so that people can refer to them. They are available on the website. Sometimes people not familiar with the process have trouble finding them, but we will try to have some paper copies. And they are a little less, they're more restrictive, where only the council members, the counselors, may speak at the closed session. So it's a little more tightly run. So just briefly, a quick difference between the Monday reference committee open hearing versus the Tuesday reference committee closed hearing. You have a less formal process. It's still, there is a process, and if you follow and review the standing rules, anyone may go to the microphone, any member of the college, and ask to speak. The presiding officer should recognize you. And on Tuesday, only counselors have the right to speak, although others may ask to be recognized, such as staff when we need staff expertise, particularly legal staff, or others that have something important to contribute from, say, a board member. But that also is predicated by appropriate language and behavior. Okay, I think I've covered most of the resources that we needed to cover, most of the similar things from prior years and some of the new things that were coming up on the meeting. Now, I'd like to make sure that we get through some of the final things and give Bill the time that he needs to say a few words. One last thing is that we have a speakers hour that we started last year that we'll try to have right outside of the council meeting room on Tuesday between 7 and 8 to try to help with last-minute changes that people may have, or questions about parliamentary process, or changes in the resolutions or policy, or anything to try to help with the process in the closed session that will occur on Tuesday after that 7 to 8 a.m. time frame. So I encourage people to use that time frame, avail themselves of the speaker, vice speaker, parliamentarian, and perhaps our legal staff will be there to help. And it was very helpful last year to have the folks there and answer questions. So with that, Bill, why don't you go ahead, and I think you have available the slides that you can change.
Yep.
Well, we'll see. Thank you, Kimberly. In order to advance the slide, do I just hit enter?
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, or arrow down.
Or arrow down. There we go. Okay, whoops. All of a sudden we went a long ways. There we go. Okay. So the Wardman Park is probably 1.5 times away from the mall compared to how far the Hilton was. So we're just up Connecticut Avenue. It's a 3.5-acre campus. You can see it's a much larger campus than the Hilton was, much larger hotel. Again, we'll be doing some things at the Omni Shoreham, which I understand. I've not been at either hotel, actually, up to now. People who've attended some Rink and Rays know that, in D.C. know that this is the hotel they've been using. And it's a short walk across the area where the parking deck is, across the street, and then into the Omni Shoreham. Here you can see the inside, pretty cavernous space, much more open than the Hilton was. We're going to have a lot of staff around. We're going to have a lot of signage. It's going to be new to everybody, including me and Kimberly. I think for this first meeting, people are going to struggle a bit trying to find where they're supposed to be and where rooms are. And there'll be people in various color shirts. I think the predominant one's going to be yellow. Is that correct, Trina?
Yes, that's correct for IT staff.
So if you see ACR staff in yellow shirts, they should be able to help you. We'll have much larger meeting space, as said, because we're going to have more attendees. Here you can see just another picture of the meeting space area. So if nothing else, you'll be able to see somebody across this chasm and maybe figure out where you're going. After the meeting, it's very important. This is a new meeting. And in the past, the evaluations, as I hope you've noticed, change how we do things at future meetings. Well, this is a big change. So the feedback you provide is going to be very informative and very, very, very important for us going forward. We'd really like to see the counselors, or at least one of the things we've sort of been encouraging on our liaison call is at least the concept of a lead counselor, or in the case of Pennsylvania, the senior counselor, as we learned last year, to think about preparing a report for their chapter, so that the chapter, just as we liaise from the CSC to the council, it's really kind of the responsibility of the counselors to liaise back to their societies and the members in their respective chapters. And so we'd like to have that become a little more robust and encourage participation in the review cycles going forward as well. We may be able to have, just because of the way the timing goes with the elections, to have finalized the CSC liaison to each of the chapters. And there will potentially be the opportunity, when people are getting together Wednesday morning, as they normally have in the past, for their breakfast and to arrange how they're going to do their Capitol Hill visits. I'm going to encourage the liaisons to find the tables with the state chapters that they're going to be the liaison with, so you can meet them, put a face with a name, and everybody will have business cards. Might be a great time to exchange business cards. And we're going to continue the liaison process, which we filtered down from just being to chapter officers to the counselors and alternate counselors throughout the year. We'd like to make the communication more robust and have you engaged more than 3 to 4 days a year, once a year, that there's information flowing to and fro throughout the entire year. So we'd like to encourage you to use your liaison as a resource for any questions you have, although you're always able to call staff and the speaker or vice speaker for any questions you have during that time as well. So that's pretty much just the wrap-up that I had, and we're going to open it to questions.
Thank you. So this is Trina. Thank you to those who, if you have submitted a question, again, if you want to do that, you can type in your questions and we'll take those. If you're unable to type in but you have something that you'd like to say, you can raise your hand and we'll try to unmute you. You can ask that live. Looks like one of the questions we had was, when will resolutions be made available? That, I believe Dr. Applegate addressed during that. So we will have them available by March 16th for posted online, and then in full formatted, assigned to each of their relative reference committees by April 1st with all of the compiled materials. Another question is, will these slides be available? And that's a great question. So the slides and this presentation, the recording, will both be made available. Tanya can speak, I think, maybe to the time frame of that, but typically it's been, I think, within a week or so of when the session is concluded, that you'll be able to access this. So we will post it available on the portal. We'll provide links to that in our chapter executive update and the council news, and make that information available. So I was able to answer those two questions. It looks like I have one here. Dr. Applegate or Harrington, you may want to ask. Question is, can I take advantage of CME activities if I'm doing my counselor duties and seeing to those activities?
Well, let me start and let Bill answer that.
Yeah.
If you're a counselor or an alternate counselor, it's required that you attend the certain governance sessions, and there's actually some information on the ACR 2015 meeting site about that. So it's really critical that you attend the Sunday morning 10 a.m. to noon session where we give the leadership reports, the candidate presentations, and of course the keynote speaker is an unopposed session. So we did that on purpose. So you'll hear Colin Powell and you'll hear the President's report by Paul Ellenbogen, and I'll introduce him. And then on Monday between 8 and 9:30 and 10 a.m. to noon, we'll have the awards presentations, and we're trying very hard to streamline those and limit those. We'll have the new officer introductions, the reports, and the reference committee open hearings. On Tuesday, we'll have from 8 to 9:30 and 1:30 to 3, we have the reference committee reports for the closed session. And those are the required sessions for the counselors and alternate counselors. Given that, we really encourage the chapter leaders to attend those sessions as well. For the rest of the time, your time is your time with the other caveat that I would hope that you would attend the Morton lecture, which is 10 a.m. to noon on Tuesday.
Yeah, and there's also CME programming Sunday afternoon when you're in caucuses. So depending on when the caucus is scheduled, how long it lasts, there may be some CMEs that you can get Sunday afternoon if you're not going to a specialty caucus, for example. You could go to the later session on Sunday. Realize, too, that after the Wednesday Capitol Hill visits, the meeting goes on with programming on Thursday and Friday, which is unlike in the past. So instead of the Saturday CME session that was part of the AMCLC, now the CME lasts longer after the Capitol Hill visits. Hence, you see the Rad Pack reception Wednesday after Capitol Hill. In the past, most people parked their suitcase someplace, checked out of the hotel, did their Capitol Hill visits, came back to the hotel, got their suitcase, and flew home. That can still be the case if that's what you wish to do, but there is programming Thursday and Friday if you want to stay those extra days. Also note that if you register for the full meeting at the counselor rate and you partake of the extra fee for the virtual meeting, which makes all of the programming available to you in every session for the next 12 months. I was just at the RSNA. They had a virtual meeting that you could pay more for. The courses were only available for 2 weeks. So you've got an entire year to do this. And you watch the lecture, do the essay question, the SAM questions at the end and get your SAM credits. That's where the 140 hours comes in. If you don't pay any fee whatsoever and come to all the sessions that are in the quote purple track, the governance track, one of the things we fought very hard for and made sure of is you will still get the 6 to 7 hours of CME you always got at the AMCLC. If you didn't go to the Saturday session, all you did was come and do all the things you were expected to do as a counselor. You will have to go online. There won't be the little form where you blacken in the circles. You'll go online. You'll find the different materials from the governance track. You can either watch the lecture or the material again, say there was an economic session, or you can skip directly to the questions at the end. You get 3 shots at getting a passing grade, which I think is 70% of the questions correct. And then you will get, not only will you get the 6 or 7 hours, but there will be SA hours this time around as opposed to regular CME hours. So they'll count towards MOC SA requirements.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And then if you've got members in groups, just so you know, you can register, but let's say you don't have the week off and you can't come. People say, boy, that looks like a great meeting, but I don't have the week off. You can register for the meeting, then register for the online virtual meeting, and you can attend the meeting virtually, never having shown up in DC, get all those hours for those fees.
Bill, those are really great points. I want to clarify one thing, though, that you said, that the meeting actually ends Thursday at 3 p.m.
Oh, it's at 3? I thought it went to Friday.
Yes, well, that was originally a discussion we did have, but it ends for everyone to be sure they understand that 3 p.m. on Thursday. Did anyone have any further questions along the lines of the CME and what to attend and what's optional?
Yeah, so there is one another question that's come in that says, does the agenda or schedule indicate the mandatory counselor sessions that must be attended, especially so new people don't fail their obligation? And so I'll address that if you can add on to it if you'd like. The governance at a glance schedule that we have put together, which outlines essentially those sessions in the governance, that really, if you want to ensure you're meeting your obligations as a counselor, that's the schedule you should follow. And so we did develop that with our counselors and alternates in mind, so that in the entire program grid, which is very colorful and very big this year, we pulled out what Dr. Applegate has referred to as our purple track as governance to indicate and draw attention to those sessions that you would want to ensure you attend as a counselor.
We also, Trina, thank you for mentioning it. We also put that information in one council news. I think we may need to emphasize that again in a couple of follow-up council news. We will also be having a conference call with the caucus leaders to try to emphasize that information to the radiologists who are running the caucus meeting coming up, and I think that will help focus, because people will probably have questions there as well.
Okay. We do have another question here. What's the number of registered attendees at this point, and how does that compare to last year?
Great question.
That is a great question.
You'll have that better than we do.
Yes, I can tell you we're close to 1,100 at this point registrants, and so that is fairly comparable to our previous AMCLC attendance, and it's difficult to compare this point last year to the same point in time, so this year to last year, as registration is opened at different times for the 2015 meeting versus our AMCLCs of the past. So it's really not a matter of comparing apples to apples from a time perspective, but we can say that there are, I would say, kind of percentage-wise, we're looking at a differential in terms of new or haven't previously attended an annual meeting attendees versus those who are returning. So we are seeing some new people, certainly in that 1,100 that have not attended in the past. So I think that's a very good thing, showing that this meeting is appealing to a broader base of individuals than just our traditional ACR annual meeting attendees. I know just because I looked at these numbers today that we have from a resident registrant perspective, we have about a quarter of those that have registered, which is around 200 at this point, that are returning attendees, so about 75% new, never attended an annual meeting before residents, which I think is very good.
Mm-hmm. That's a great group.
Yeah, and so I do have another question here, and the question is, what about new attendees who are not counselors? What will they be doing during reference committee meetings? Will they be allowed to comment on policy resolutions and practice parameters and technical standards?
Right. Well, let me start by saying that one of the goals that Paul Ellenbogen, our current president, had in promoting the concept of an all-member meeting, that's how he put the proposal forward about 4 years ago now, was to try to bring in college members to see what policymaking was like. It's a little messy when you see a council meeting for the first time, but the idea was to bring them to try to see what policymaking was about, to see the economics forum that we do, which is one of the highlights of the meeting, and to try to go to Capitol Hill and understand, what that's like, and then to go home and do it. Really, it's to do some teaching about that and some mentoring about that, and then go home and continue to do it in your state. And so the answer to the question is that yes, any member in the open session on Monday can go to the microphone and speak. There are some rules around that which are outlined on the scenario cards and in the standing rules about the time you can speak at the microphone and what you can say. You can't be rude. You have to be civil. You have to limit your discussion, and it has to be pertinent to the resolution at hand. And can't be talking about whatever you feel like talking about. So it does have to be pertinent. You have to be somewhat educated about what you're going to go to the microphone to speak about. Or you can ask one of the counselors to say something on your behalf if you have something burning to say. Now, as a member, you cannot go to the microphone on the closed session unless you have some very, very important thing to say, and I don't imagine that would be the case as any member on the closed session days. So I think it will be limited to the Monday when members may feel that they want to say something at the microphone. This is a real adventure for the speaker and the vice speaker and the staff, because we really don't know how many members will want to go to the microphone. I suspect not many. I suspect they'll be wanting to watch and see how it plays out. In my first council meeting as a resident was very much of a watch and try to understand it.
Great, thank you for that. We do have another question here. What is the role of the alternate counselor? Can an alternate counselor serve on a committee?
That's a great question, too. So the alternate counselor can actually, at the very last minute, serve as a counselor or in the place of a counselor if a counselor cannot serve, if they have to leave at the last minute, if they're sick, if they end up not attending. So they may, at the credentialing table, right outside at the registration area, typically we have a credentialing table, and there's a credentialing committee, and they can actually sign in as a counselor if a counselor for their society or for their chapter, state chapter, cannot be available. So that's one of their potential roles. The other thing is that only counselors can serve on reference committees, serve on credentialing committees, or tellers committees. So there are some rules around that, and only counselors vote for candidates and vote in the council sessions regarding the resolutions.
I would add to that anyone can speak during the open reference committee hearings on Monday. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to be a counselor. I think we're going to draw the line at you do have to be a member of the American College
That's
of
correct.
Radiology. Now,
That's correct.
On Tuesday, only counselors are permitted to speak. Again, they don't have to ask permission to speak. They're a counselor. They have to announce they're a counselor. Anyone who is not a counselor does have to ask permission to speak, and they're likely only to be recognized if there was a point of information or a legal question and we have legal staff come up. We do limit debate on Tuesday almost exclusively to counselors.
Yep.
And the other thing I'll point out too, Kimberly mentioned it about the suggestions in writing. It's not a formal motion process on Monday. You can say, I'd like for line 15 to read this way, and this is the suggested change I have, and here's why. You want to justify it. People can get up to a microphone and say that was a great idea, or we're against that because. And it has to be either in writing via electronic form or written longhand. In order for the reference committee to do its job, what it does is goes in the closed session. It has heard all of this testimony. It's their job to decide what the will of council was and what the preponderance of opinion was. So if there's only positive opinions about a suggested change, it's going to be very unusual that the reference committee is not going to make that change. unless there's some legal or very good medical reason why that can't occur. But they can only make changes if there was testimony to the change and there was a suggested language change given to them in writing. Absent both of those, they're powerless to act. They can't just pick out a sentence they want to change.
Those are great points, Bill, and I'll just add to that a little bit further and say a couple things. One is that we are in the electronic era. We've tried to move toward it as much as possible, so these changes that we've been saying are in writing. We, in fact, encourage them to be submitted electronically. So most of these changes are submitted electronically, although not all. And the other point that I'll make is that sometimes the reference committee has difficulty understanding the will of the council, or that's not typical, but or the debate gets so contentious or so complex that the council can't sort it out in such a short period of time. They understand that it's complex, and the reference committee will ask for a referral and say that it can't solve it right now. It asks for referral to form a task force or to send it back to the practice parameter writing committee. And that does happen, not often.
Okay, and a follow-up question to the role of the alternate counselor is, if you substitute for a counselor on Tuesday, are you able to speak on the council floor?
You certainly are. That's a great question. I should have clarified that. You are able to vote. You have the full rights and privileges of a counselor throughout the meeting.
Wonderful.
Great question.
Okay.
You do have to go to the credentialing committee, though, and it requires a piece of paperwork to be done by the state chapter president.
Yes, and then the credentialing committee table will take care of it, and you need a ribbon, the counselor ribbon, red ribbon. That's correct. You need all of those things. So there is a process, but it can be done very quickly on site. If not beforehand, if you know about it beforehand. One other thing I want to mention, bring up in all of this, is that the role of the speaker and vice speaker are that we are presiding officers, and we tend to be neutral in these debates. We tend not to have, we try not to have or share our opinions on the different policy resolutions or parameters. We will try to encourage, people to have their time to speak if they don't understand something. We want to make sure that we clarify a situation, but at the same time, there is only a certain amount of time for these sessions, and over the past decade or even longer, that time has eroded away as we have shorter annual meetings, and we have a lot of other things that are being done at these annual meetings. So we end up trying to be very efficient with our time, and we also want to make sure that if it's very clear to the council or to us that the vast majority of people are speaking in favor or against a certain resolution, we are going to ask the council if they want to speak on the other side of a debate, and then we will ask for any other comments and then ask for a vote. So we'll try to manage a process as best we can, and then call for a vote. And then the council has the right to challenge us on that and ask for more debate. But typically, it becomes clear that the consensus is understood.
Great, and it looks like I have Dr. Kirk has his hand raised, so he hasn't typed in a question. I am going to unmute Dr. Kirk here. Dr. Kirk, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Go ahead and ask your question.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am in the middle of taking care of a patient, and that was inadvertent.
No problem.
My apology.
No problem. All right. So it looks like we are coming up on the 9 o'clock hour, and we've actually addressed questions that we have here. So if there are no more questions, I will leave this Dr. Applegate and Dr. Harrington if you'd like to close out tonight's session, if there are any last comments you'd like to make.
Well, I'll say one thing. I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time this evening to be with us. I think it was a very useful session, and I thank people for their questions. And I also want to make sure that people know that we are serious when we say in our council news at the bottom to please contact us or contact, I know Trina and Tanya and Lauren are available for further questions, and we look forward to seeing everyone at this meeting. I think it's going to be a really interesting meeting, and I hope people will come up and introduce themselves, or feel free to call us. So thank you.
And I'd echo that as well, and to let you know that part of the reason we have that speaker by speaker hour, our job is to try and help get through the business of the council, to do it in a manner in which we're not partial to any particular view, and it's our job to try and help you make sure your voice is heard. We're not there to embarrass you. If you have any question about how to do something under the parliamentary rules, which can seem very arcane, just grab one of us, come to the speaker by speaker hour, say, this is what I want to accomplish, how do I do it? That's where we're there for. We're to help you do what it is you want to do.
Great. Thank you both very much. I will just echo Dr. Applegate's appreciation for everyone taking the time to join us tonight. Again, as she mentioned, myself, this is Trina Madison again, and Lauren Alfaro are your primary staff for governance. Tanya does a great job putting these sessions on, so certainly let us know if there are additional topics you'd like to have covered in future sessions. The next one is coming up in April, which is a RADPAC session, so I encourage you to look at the schedule for that. I believe it's April 14th, and register to participate in that session as well, which will be another great pre-meeting class session. We will provide you an opportunity to evaluate this one, and as I mentioned previously, we will make the recording and slides available via the chapter portal, and also available linked through your council news and your chapter executive update. If you are not currently receiving either of those communications, please be sure to let us know so we can make sure you're on our distribution list. And with that, I will say thank you and good night.
Thank you, Trina.